So digital nomads are something of an interesting bunch. They've got really different things that they're concerned about than most people. Mortgage? Probably not. Car payment? Almost assuredly not. Today I'm gonna run you through 10 things that all digital nomads need to consider. And honestly, when you forget a few of them, it can make your life kind of hard. First and foremost, visa requirements. If you don't get this right, you're not even gonna get into the country that you wanna visit. So make sure that you understand where you're coming from in terms of your nationality and where you're going to. You also need to think about how long you're gonna stay. If you wanna go in and out in 2 weeks, that might be very different than staying for 6 months. And honestly, now countries are getting wiser to people who are staying and working remotely, so some actually require you to get a specific visa to do your digital nomad work. Be cognizant of who you are and where you're going, because messing that one up can really mess things up for you. Next is the cost of living. Well, it's pretty easy for most people who are stationary to figure out what their monthly expenses are gonna be. As a digital nomad, it's a little bit different. It's gonna change based on the exchange rate, based on the general consumer bundle in the place that you're going, and based on your travel style. While you may not have a car payment every month, if you're getting on a plane every month, that's probably an expense that you need to factor in. Before getting somewhere, it's good to factor in the cost of food, accommodation, transportation, any activities you may wanna do, booze. The difference between a beer in Mexico and a beer in Iceland, night and day. But before you get there, just have a rough understanding of how much you're going to need during your time there. And thanks to the internet, that's super easy to do. Next thing you gotta consider, internet connectivity. I know this sounds obvious, but when you get deep into the jungle, in the middle of Bali or in the middle of Costa Rica, the internet might not be bulletproof. So make sure that you have a contingency plan and you understand how good the internet is in each of the accommodations that you book. Or if there's a co-working space, make sure that the internet is good there. I've told this story before, but in Costa Rica, sometimes they tend to get rolling blackouts in certain areas. If you have cell service, you can actually use your cell phone as a hotspot. So there are little workarounds that you'll figure out. But if you have a rough sense of whether this is common or uncommon, you can better prepare just in case the internet cuts out during the middle of your most important Zoom meeting, because that's when it always seems to happen. Next one also seems pretty obvious, but it's safety. You want to understand if you're going to be safe in the place that you are. That means doing a little research not only on the country you're visiting, but the neighborhood that you're planning to stay in. There are dramatic differences in crime rates from neighborhood to neighborhood, even within the same city. Try to avoid areas that could be problematic. You also need to think about health insurance. This is something that if you're American, you're used to thinking about. But just because you have an American policy, if you are American, doesn't mean you're going to be covered abroad. Similarly, if you're from just about anywhere else that takes care of their citizens in a different way than the Americans do, your coverage probably isn't going to extend abroad either. Although we hope nothing happens, right? That's always the default. It's a good idea to make sure that just in case something does, you're still covered. And let me tell you, I've seen a few things happen. Trust me, you want to be covered. Something that most people don't actually think about when they're looking at all the places that they could go. Remember, you are a professional. Having good networking opportunities can be invaluable to accelerating your career. Now, there are plenty of digital nomad hubs where you can just drop in and you'll meet CEOs, you'll meet executives, you'll meet entrepreneurs, all kinds of people. But oftentimes, the place that you go attracts a certain kind of person. So think about what you're looking for and then pick places that kind of correspond to what you want. Next is your work-life balance. You're always going to want to consider this, especially if you work a consistent time in a consistent time zone. As you travel, your personal work hours are going to change. For example, if you're working East Coast hours of the US, but you're in mainland Europe like Paris, you're probably going to be starting around 3 p.m. and then finishing around 11. So yes, that totally means that you're going to miss most aperos and you're going to miss the afternoon festivities. But you also get to stay out as late as you want because you don't have to be in the office at 9 a.m. You can sleep until 2, have an hour, and then start work at 3. And the last thing, but probably the most important thing, is to consider your own adaptability. Knowing yourself is an invaluable thing in this game. If you're someone who needs structure and planning, do it. If you're someone who can fly by the seat of your pants, go for it. Knowing how adaptable you can be in each situation will ultimately lead to better outcomes. If you're someone who needs structure and certainty, don't put yourself in a situation where it's going to be totally random. Even if great things are happening around you, it's probably going to ruin your time. All that said, Being a digital nomad is probably one of the best things that someone can do. It lets you experience the world, new cultures, new places, and meet new incredible people. So if you ask me for my 2 cents, don't wait for it. Get out there and go have some fun.